In today's video, we're going to look at even more similar English words. You ready? Let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Lloyd's Everyday English. It's a pleasure to have you with me wherever you're watching from in the world. If you've never joined me on this channel before, this is the channel where I take your English to the next level with lessons like this one. If you would like to see more lessons like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell as well so you never miss another video. Now, today's lesson is going to be part two, by popular demand, part two of this topic here. So, similar English words with different meanings. If you haven't seen the last lesson, you can just click here and check it out. But yeah, similar English words. There are many English words, and probably in your language as well, which are pretty similar, but they have a slightly different or a very different meaning. So you have to be careful if you want to sound even more natural in English. Speaking of speaking naturally in English, if you would like to become a member of our private community, actually the questions from today's lesson were asked by one of our private members, you can click here to find out more about joining our private community where we have live lessons every day, like this one, and group speaking classes and much more as well. Click on the link there or in the description to find out more about our community. So, similar English words with different meanings, part two. Now, we're going to look at four different, it's very, very hot here today in South Africa. 34, 35 degrees as I'm talking to you, so if I do sweat at all, please forgive me. All right, so we're going to be looking at four different examples, which were all requested, as I said, by one of our members. Actually, unless I'm mistaken, they were all requested by a member of ours in Ukraine. Her name is Eugenia. And so thank you to Eugenia for these really good words, similar words, which can be a little bit confusing, the difference between them. And the words are going to be these ones. Firstly, in the way or on the way. What is the difference? What is the difference? What is the difference between classic and classical? This is one that I've seen people get mistaken with quite often. And historical. What's the difference there? And economical. Those are the words we're going to look at today. What is the difference? We're going to break it down. We're going to look at examples as well. And at the end, I'm going to give you a very quick little quiz just to make sure that you have been paying attention. So make sure you don't miss that at the end. All right. You ready? So let's get into it without any further ado. So the first one we're going to look at is in the way or on the way. I think this might be the easiest one to explain out of all of them. So, in the way, on the way. What is the difference? So, if something is in the way, that means it is blocking you. It is stopping you. It is preventing you from doing what you are trying to do. Imagine you are moving forward towards trying to do something, whether you're moving to a destination or it could be physical or metaphorical, but something is stopping you. It is in your way. It is in the way. Okay, so the other one here is on the way. So on the way basically just means you are moving on a journey to a destination. So they are related, these two. If you are on the way, that means you are moving towards your destination. Okay, again, it could be a real physical destination or a more metaphorical kind of destination. We'll look at an example in a moment. But if something is stopping you on the way, then it is in the way. It's in your way. Or it's getting in your way. You often use it in that form as well. So, for example, I'm trying to watch the TV, but you're in the way. Please move. Please get out the way, you would often say in this situation as well. Get out the way, right? You are in the way. Please get out of the way. Don't let your fears stand in the way. It's another good expression. Stand in the way of reaching your goals. So remember I said before that destination could be a physical one you could see, or it could be one that you can't necessarily see. So your goal, your dream career goal, these are not physical, but they are, part of a destination. And if something stops you from reaching it, it is in your way. So don't let fears stand in the way of reaching your goals. Some good advice, I think. Now, next example here. I'll be a little late, but I'm on the way, don't worry. Remember, on the way means you are moving towards your destination. So I'm on the way. You often will hear people say this, maybe on the phone. Don't worry, I'm on the way. I'm coming. I promise, I'm on the way. Please wait for me. He's on the way to becoming a successful architect. Now, as I mentioned before, you could be on the way to your goal, your dream, your ambitions, reaching your ambitions. So if you are becoming more and more successful, in this case as an architect, you are on the way to becoming a successful architect. Maybe you have designed a few buildings already and you are starting to become well known as a successful architect. If you keep going, you will become a very successful and well-known one. So hopefully that is clear now. Hopefully that is crystal clear for you there. So in the way and on the way. We're going to have a little quiz at the end, remember, so stay tuned. But the next one is going to be classic or classical. Now, these ones can be quite easily misunderstood. Classic and classical. And they are kind of similar in a way, but obviously not exactly the same. Now, classic can be either an adjective or a noun. This is very important. And it means to be thought of as the highest quality and best of its kind, or it is valued because it has a traditional style. Now, this can be a little bit confusing because classical can kind of overlap in a certain way here, but I'm going to make it crystal clear, hopefully, what classical means. Now, classical is a little bit more specific. I would say classic is more general. Classical is actually pretty specific to a few certain areas. Now, these areas are, and again, classical in this case is only an adjective, not a noun. So something can be a classic, but it can't be a classical. Classical is only an adjective. Now, classical either relates to ancient Greece and Rome, okay? So the ancient Greek and Roman world, so Greek or Roman literature, art, architecture, philosophies, etc. So that is known as the classical world, classical history, classical civilizations. So that's the first way you can use the word classical. The second way, this is very specific, is music from the late 18th and early 19th century. Well, that's technically what classical music is, but, and I'm not an expert about this at all, but I'm pretty sure that classical music will also describe music that was slightly before that and slightly after that. But it's that kind of style. So if you imagine Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, those guys, right? And it's mostly guys. But those composers, their music is classical music. So it's a very specific type of music. Let me know in the comments if you are a fan of classical music. Now let's look at some examples here of classic and classical. Friends, the TV show Friends. How you doing? As Joey would say. Friends is a classic TV sitcom. A classic. It's getting a bit old now, right, from the 90s, but people still watch it. People remember it as one of the best comedies, TV shows, sitcoms. It's a classic. It's a classic. So you could use it in the noun form. You could say it's a classic, or it's a TV sitcom classic, or as an adjective, it's a classic TV sitcom. The 1966 World Cup final, a lot of English people will talk about this one. The 1966 World Cup final between England and Germany was a classic. Well, maybe if you are German, then you disagree, but it's a very famous game. It's the only time that England have won the World Cup until now, when I'm making this video. And it was a very controversial game as well. It went to extra time. Yeah, it was a pretty crazy game, but it's a classic. It's one that people, especially in England, refer to as a classic. Again, maybe not if you're a German, but you can use this for sports games, for movies, ones that people will always remember, even many years later. It's a classic. It's a classic. And as I said, you can use it for music as well. So I love the classic songs of the Beatles, Queen, and Michael Jackson. They are timeless. They are timeless classics, you could say. They are classic artists, classic musicians. It's classic, you could have classic pop, classic rock. Okay, now notice I'm not saying classical, right? It would be very strange if I referred to any of these guys, Beatles, Queen, or Michael Jackson, as classical. Definitely not. They are classic musicians. They have classic songs. Now, another phrase which came to mind is one that you will hear from time to time. Now, often classics are maybe quite old, something in the past that was really amazing. But if there's something new which is really amazing and people can predict that, wow, many years in the future, we will still be talking about this. This is already a classic. You could say it's an instant classic. So if there's a new song, for example, and it's, wow, this is amazing. I think 10 years later, 20 years later, 50 years later, people will still be enjoying this. It's an instant classic. Or a movie. So last year, for example, the Joker movie came out with Joaquin Phoenix. It was an amazing movie. It was fantastic. I think many years later, people will still be watching that movie. Another one that comes to mind, speaking of Queen, is Bohemian Rhapsody. These are movies which are still pretty new, but I think, in my opinion, and many other people's opinions, they were instant classics. I'm pretty sure many years later, people will still be enjoying those movies. This is my story here, actually. When I was in secondary school, I learned about the classical civilizations of Greece and Rome. So I remember when I was in the last 2 years of secondary school in the UK, we actually had options. So we were able to choose some of our subjects. Now, there were certain ones you had to do, like English, of course, and maths and science, biology, etc. But then you could do your own, you could choose your own options as well. And I think we could choose 3 or 4. And one of the subjects I chose as my options, one of my options was classical civilization. Classical civilization. And it was really interesting. It was kind of similar to history. It was, it was like a history class basically, but focused only on ancient Rome and ancient Greece. So the classical civilization. So we learned about Plato. We learned about, that was a long time ago now, but from what I remember, it was very, very interesting. We learned all about classical Greek and Roman architecture, how people lived in those days, what people did. And it was really fascinating. And the philosophy of the time. And yeah, that was a really good subject. And it was classical civilization. Classical. Classical music, like Beethoven or Mozart, isn't my favorite. This is my story again. But it's good to listen to if you want to relax. Let me know in the comments if you are a fan of classical music. For me, in some situations it's good. Like you just want to relax. Maybe you're feeling a bit stressed. You want to calm down, but I wouldn't generally listen to classical music myself. I would listen to classic music, classic pop, classic rock. I love it. I love classic music from the 80s, for example. I love it. But classical music is not my favorite, personally. Okay, let's move along, shall we? So, the next one we're going to look at is historic and historical. Historic and historical. These are two words which I have seen confused pretty often, even by, I might add, even by native English speakers from time to time. Now, let's look at the meanings of these two. The first one is historic, which means, as an adjective, actually both of these are adjectives, but historic refers to a very important moment in history. A moment in history that is very significant. People will remember this moment many years from now. It's very important. It could be in politics, for example. It's pretty often used in that type of situation. It can be positive or negative. So, for example, the start of a war could be a historic moment. The end of a war could be historic as well, or an achievement. I'd say it's probably more commonly used in a positive way now that I think of it. So, a historic achievement, like when Usain Bolt broke the world record for the 100 meters. And also when Usain Bolt won, he won 3 times the 100 meters in the Olympics. That was a historic achievement. Now, historical is different. Historical is more general. Historical refers just simply something or someone related to a period in history. So you could have historical buildings, historical artifacts, historical people. Rather, you would say historical figures. Okay, so Napoleon, for example, Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela. It doesn't only have to be positive. I mean, it could be Adolf Hitler is a historical figure, right? So again, not necessarily positive or negative, but people related to history or things or people. And it's different to historic because it's not referring to a moment in time. It's just something or someone that is related to history, not related to the present day. So why don't we look at some examples of this one? The release of Nelson Mandela in 1990 from prison, and the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was almost the same time, 1989, so very similar period of time, actually, bit of a coincidence there. These were both historic events, okay? When Nelson Mandela came out of prison, it began the end of the racist apartheid system, and it was the beginning of democracy in South Africa. The end of the Cold War was started or signified, set into motion when the Berlin Wall came down. Both of these events were things that many people thought might never happen, and they shocked the world. They were both historic events, okay? Historic, because they are so significant. I love to visit historical sites like castles and palaces. This is actually true for me as well. I really like to visit historical places like, yes, castles are really beautiful, for example. Palaces, of course. Yeah, and let me know in the comments if what type of historical places you like to visit. I really like it when you go to historical places and you can actually kind of feel the history in the air, if you know what I mean. You think, wow, all of these things happened in this specific place. Wow. And you imagine it and you can kind of feel it. So that's historical. Now, museums contain countless historical artifacts. Artifacts are objects from the past. So if you go to London, for example, which I get confused. There's a few different museums in London. I think it's the National History Museum, unless I'm mistaken, has historical artifacts from all over the world, whether it's ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, and many more. And some countries are not happy about that because, we actually stole many of those. But yeah, so many, countless, thousands, maybe millions, I don't know, historical artifacts in museums like that. Now, we're going to move on to the last one for today. The last one, 4 out of 4, the 4th out of 4. Again, I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many, so we're just looking at 4 examples today. And the last one is economic or economical. Economical. This is very commonly mistaken as well, or confused. So what is the difference? Firstly, economic simply relates to money. So anything related to finance, related to money in some way, the economy, your own financial situation, the financial situation of the country, of the world, you would use the word economic. However, economical is a bit different. Economical has the meaning of being careful with your money, spending it wisely. So the phrase is to be economical. Okay? So it's a verb, to be economical. So if you are very careful with your money, you are economical with your finances. So there's quite a big difference there. Quite a big difference. Firstly, for example, the economic situation around the world, maybe in your country, probably almost every country now, following COVID lockdowns and the disaster of the economic disaster of the coronavirus. It's extremely worrying. The economic situation, economic disaster, economic collapse. Okay? So we are hoping for an economic improvement, an economic upturn, and hopefully not an economic downturn, which is what is happening right now. So all of these things related to the economy, we would use the adjective economic. Okay? But economical, you could say, for example, I'm trying to be economical these days so that I can save money for a vacation. You want to go on vacation, you need to be careful with your money. You need to be economical with your money. You need to be economical with your money. You need to not spend too much. Another similar word is frugal. Frugal, F-R-U-G-A-L, to be frugal with your money. Very careful with your money. Now, this is another way you can use the word economical, and that is to be economical with the truth. So that means not exactly lying, but it's very similar. So if you are not telling everything, you're not being totally honest, you're just telling certain things, but not everything, you are being economical with the truth. Governments, politicians are often very economical with the truth. They don't tell you everything, right? So for example, please don't be economical with the truth. Tell me everything. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. All right, now is time for a quiz. Okay, time for a quiz. Are you ready? Quiz time here on this video. So yeah, leave your answers in the comments or on a notepad. Let's see if you have got the hang of these words. We're going to take a look at 4 questions here. The first one is, The signing of the peace deal was a beep moment. So was it historic or historical? Historic or historical? What do you think? What do you think? The answer is historic. Remember, historic is for important, significant moments in time, in history. So the signing of the peace deal was a historic moment. All right, let's move along to the next question here. His salary demands are beep of them agreeing the contract. So think back to the beginning of this lesson. We looked at in the way and on the way. In the way, on the way. In the way, on the way. So his salary demands are of them agreeing a contract. 3, 2, 1. In the way. His salary demands are in the way of them agreeing a contract. So you could imagine in a contract negotiating situation, they agree on many things, but there's, the potential employee wants more money. You often see this with football players, greedy football players who want even more before they join the team. So his salary demands are in the way of them agreeing the contracts. Okay, 2 more questions here. Remember, on the way is moving towards your destination. Something music isn't my favorite. It's a bit too slow and old-fashioned. What type of music could some people say is a bit too slow and old-fashioned? Maybe you like this type of music. A lot of people do. But remember, I said in my case, it's not my favorite necessarily. Is it classic or classical? Classic music or classical music? 3, 2, 1. Classical is the answer. Remember, classical is that specific type of music from 17th, 18th century. Is that right? You know what I'm talking about. Mozart, Beethoven, etc. It's getting a little bit dark here, so we should finish up quickly here. All right. If I can get a part-time job, or if I could get a part-time job, if I can, that will help my something problems. Is it your economic problems or your economical problems? Economic or economical? Give you a few moments here. You can write it in the comments if you want. 3, 2, 1. Economic is the answer there. So if I can get a part-time job, that will help with my economic problems. And if that is your situation, good luck on the job hunt. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Hope this was a useful video. So just to quickly review before we finish here. So we looked at in the way, on the way. In the way, something is stopping you from reaching your goal. On the way simply means you are moving through your journey. Second one, classic, something that is the best in its area. You could have or something from the past which people remember in a very happy, fond way. And classical is that type of music we just talked about, or it is related to ancient Rome or ancient Greece. Historic is something very special, important, well, could be special, very important, significant moment in history. Historical is simply related to history, more general. And in this case, economic is more general, just related to money. Economical means you are being very careful with your money. So hopefully that should be clear. Let me know in the comments if you have any other words which you would like to review. Maybe some other similar words you're confused about. I'll be very happy to make maybe a part 3 for this topic. But until next time, everybody, before it gets too dark here, I'm going to love you and leave you. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you have not already. And I'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye-bye.